Explaining what it's like to experience intimate partner abuse can be challenging. And for many survivors, it can even feel re-traumatizing, especially when they have to keep telling and retelling and reliving their story in so many different situations and in front of so many different people. In many cases, it's hard for survivors to even find words to describe what's happened, especially if it's been largely emotional, financial, or technological abuse, especially if they live in a nice neighborhood where abuse is not supposed to happen, especially if their partner is a doctor, therapist, attorney, or some other powerful person in the community with a very positive public image, and especially if they have no bruises or broken bones or any other kind of forensic evidence to show for it. I'm Ruth Darlene, founder and executive director of Women of Silicon Valley, WomenSV, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering survivors, service providers, and communities with education on covert abuse and coercive control. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 essential steps for documenting coercive control. Steps designed to empower survivors and give providers the insight they need to help. These steps have helped hundreds of survivors take their power back over their story and move forward with their lives. Some topics discussed may be triggering, so please take breaks for self-care as needed. So let's do it. Let's jump into the 5 steps to follow when documenting coercive control. Step 1, understanding coercive control. If we're going to document and report domestic abuse in a clear, concise way, we first need to start with a clear understanding of both the general and legal definitions of terms like coercive control. Here's the generally accepted definition of coercive control: a pattern of behavior that manipulates, controls, threatens, and isolates an intimate partner. It tends to be a gender-based crime perpetrated by men against women. It often involves micromanaging aspects of household duties that we traditionally think of as being associated with women, things like childcare, cooking, shopping, housekeeping. It has the effect of turning women into servants, prisoners in their personal lives, and it tends to get worse over time. The abuse itself tends to get worse, and it tends to become more frequent over time. It is also a lethality risk. And why is that? Because it involves treating an intimate partner like an object, like a resource, like a resource to use and use up, like an object, or like a sex object, like a possession. And what's the ultimate right of property possession? Disposal. The right to dispose of it when it no longer seems useful or when it begins to cause trouble. The legal definition of coercive control varies depending on location, so make sure to research your local laws to find the definition that applies best to your situation. In the United States, some states recognize coercive control as a crime, others recognize it as a civil issue, and some unfortunately don't recognize it at all. So in California, you'll want to look at Family Code 6320, Family Code 6320. Which describes coercive control in detail and gives examples. I have a video about it also on this channel, and even more information in the in-depth class on our website, so make sure to check out these resources for more detail. Step 2, goal setting and choosing your audience. Survivors document their experiences for a lot of different reasons: reporting to law enforcement, informing a therapist, seeking support from an advocate, preparing for legal proceedings, telling a trusted friend, or even just making sense of what happened for themselves, or to put away and use to decide what to do about it or with it later. Identifying why the story is being shared can help determine which details are most relevant. That's where the goals come in. Figure out who your audience is and what your goals are. Whether it's a survivor deciding what's most important to share, or a provider helping a survivor to prioritize details, clarifying the purpose makes the process more focused and effective. Step 3, building a timeline. Next, let's start building a timeline of events. For survivors, this timeline serves as a chronological outline to start organizing specific incidents of abuse. Including exact dates of these incidents is ideal, but you may not always be able to do that. So then even approximate dates or date ranges, or even the time of year or the year if you can remember it, these can be valuable when you're unsure of specific dates. For providers assisting survivors, helping them piece together this timeline can offer valuable context and deepen your understanding of their experience. Start with any key events, then add to them over time as other memories surface. You could start with what you remember most recently that happened, and then perhaps what was the first incident you remember, and the worst thing that happened, and then start fill in between. Then step 4, create an incident and allegation log. Building on the timeline, create a more detailed incident and allegation log. Survivors can begin by documenting the first, worst, and most recent incidents that I just talked about, and providers can assist by guiding survivors through documenting each event thoroughly. For each entry, include, if at all possible, the date or the date range, a description of what happened and how it made you feel, frightened, humiliated, controlled, isolated, trapped. Also include any false allegations or accusations made by the abuser, and include any evidence available that supports your claims, like photos or screenshots of text messages, emails, medical reports, police reports, witness statements, and anything else that you can use as evidence. This log will offer a structured way to document incidents and will be helpful when the details need to be revisited or shared with others. In our full class, you'll receive a template of the timeline and the incident and allegation log, plus examples to help you with this process. Now, step 5, gather supporting documents to help complete your summary. To help complete this executive summary, documenting the abuse, gather documents that provide context for coercive control, the more obvious forms as well as the less obvious forms of abuse you've experienced. You can refer to helpful resources like the Power and Control Wheel. You can Google that, the Danger Assessment that Jackie Campbell created, or the Women's Experience with Battering, the Webb Scale. These tools can help both survivors and providers describe specific incidents and emphasize the severity of the experiences. In our full-length version, we'll have all these documents, all the templates, all these models in the same place, in one place in our course. It'll be explained to you in detail along with examples to help jog your memory. For survivors, once you complete these steps, you can create a new document summarizing and highlighting the most important details that you gathered during this process. This will serve as a powerful tool to organize your information in a way that can be easily understood by others that you want to share it with. And what's more, this document will be versatile. Survivors, you can adapt it according to whoever your audience is. A therapist, attorney, financial advisor, a cybersecurity expert, extended family members, yourself. And it can also be adapted according to whatever your goals are. Financial guidance, technological support, legal advice, safety planning, or maybe you just want it for your own personal use. For survivors, remember to keep any documentation safe and secure where an abuser can't find it or anyone else. Keep it safe so it's for your eyes only until you're ready to share. By safely keeping this information readily available for when you need it, you'll be able to more easily share your story without having to relive it, re-traumatize yourself in recalling it, or having to sift through tons and tons of documents each time. For both survivors and providers, these steps form a powerful framework to understand, document, and communicate experiences of coercive control. This process will help to clarify details of what happened and create a bridge to understanding and support. Obvious forms of domestic violence can be easy to describe. There's usually physical, some kind of forensic evidence. But with coercive control, not so much, not always. It can be much more subtle and often a hidden form of abuse. And that kind of abuse is especially difficult to document. Survivors often feel frustrated trying to put their experiences into words, while providers may struggle to fully understand all the complexities involved. We are still stuck in our old way of looking at domestic violence. In spite of laws around coercive control in many states now, many providers as well as survivors are still in the early stages of learning what all it involves, let alone how to report it or get support around it. As difficult as this process can be, sharing the survivor's story is a very important part of building a support system. Whether survivors are seeking help from a therapist, advocate, doctor, police officer, lawyer, family member, or trusted friend, Documenting abuse helps others understand their needs and helps them provide more effective support. Many survivors also are suffering from something called trauma brain. It's a direct consequence of living with abuse, no matter how brilliant you are. This can impair your ability to first remember what happened and then describe it in a clear, coherent, linear way. Because for a while at least, you may be experiencing some very common, very normal side effects of living with an abuser, like having difficulty remembering, articulating, organizing, and then reporting some of the worst experiences of your life. The good news here is that this condition isn't permanent. You can recover once you're safe. Thanks to the neuroplasticity of the brain, we know now that the brain can heal. But in the meantime, while you're still in the throes of your experience, it's like you're standing in the middle of Route 66 with trucks blasting by you, and then someone hands you a form and says, "Here, fill this out." So if you are a survivor, please give yourself some grace. On the other hand, if you are a provider watching this video, your clients and patients and students, whoever you're working with, are going to need that same kind of support and patience and grace from you. When you have multiple cases and a calendar full of court dates and deadlines, it can be frustrating trying to guide survivors efficiently through the process of telling their story, to get the facts down in a chronological, logical manner, and in a way that still honors the pain and suffering that they've been through. If you give them a homework assignment of documenting their experiences, don't be surprised if you don't get it back in a timely fashion. Fight, flight, freeze, these are common trauma responses, and nothing is more likely to trigger a freeze response than asking survivors to go home and write down all the details of their own personal journey through hell. They're not uncooperative, they're traumatized. Whether you are a survivor or a provider, we have a tool to support you in all of these areas: remembering, articulating, organizing, and reporting various forms of abuse, in addition to physical and sexual, so that by the end of it, you will end up with a concise, coherent summary of what happened, the impact it had, and the support and protection that are needed now as a result. I developed the Executive Summary Workshop to guide survivors and the professionals who serve them in documenting coercive control and other forms of domestic abuse. If you'd like the whole workshop, it's about 90 minutes. We have the full-length course available online, where I will walk you through the process in greater detail. It's called Documenting Coercive Control with the Executive Summary Workshop. Whether you're a survivor looking to organize your story or a provider supporting survivors through this process, this workshop is designed for you, for both survivors and providers. So make sure to click the link in the description to learn more. Just a few quick disclaimers. None of it is meant to be legal or therapeutic advice. You'll often hear me say she or her when referring to survivors, and he or him for perpetrators, because coercive control is primarily a gender-based crime committed by men against women. But still, it's important to acknowledge that abuse can occur across all genders, all relationship dynamics. Men can be victims, women can be perpetrators. So please feel free to substitute the pronouns that apply to your situation. And if you hear me use the term victim instead of survivor, it's not in the sense of victim mentality. It's in the sense of crime victim, just as you would refer to a victim of a robbery or drive-by shooting. Domestic violence is a crime, and besides, not all victims survive. Coercive control, with or without a prior history of physical violence, is a lethality risk. And survivors deserve all the support they can get to keep them and their children safe. Documenting the abuse can be the first step in getting that support. Thank you for watching, and I hope these steps serve as a valuable resource, whether you're a survivor organizing your story or a provider ready to assist. For more guidance, templates, and document examples, check out our in-depth class on our website. Just click the link in the description to learn more and join the course. Remember, sharing a story of abuse is a brave and important step. For survivors and the advocates supporting them, this documentation process can be an empowering way to break the isolation of abuse and start building a path towards safety, support, protection, and best of all, healing.